Hi, this is Piero Giorgio, author of Survive the Economic Collapse. Today I'm in Lisbon, fantastic city in the great country of Portugal. Behind me, as you can see, the monument to the navigators with King Henry the Navigator and many of the famous Portuguese explorers who went across the world and made Portugal an empire across all continents, from India to the Pacific, all the way into Africa and of course America. Today I'd like to discuss with you how is Portugal going to withstand the economic collapse that is we're in the middle and that is beginning, and to see a little bit how can Portugal and Portuguese people or people living in Portugal make it in the difficult years ahead of us. Still here in Lisbon, to assess the ability of a country like Portugal to do well or not in an economic collapse, you have to see first the geography, as always. Portugal is a country on the, of course, the western tip of the European peninsula, the European continent, so it is open to the ocean, has a long coastline in the ocean, has a long tradition of fishing and fishermen, sailing across the Atlantic and up to the Grand Banks and Newfoundland to catch cod. So it has a big tradition of being open to the sea. In fact, a lot of the great discoveries done in the 15th and 16th century by Portuguese sailors across Africa, but also South America, and of course all the way to India and the Pacific, were done by these great sailors. So it is a geography that led people to be very open on discoveries and on the seas, and therefore the technology and innovations that lead you to navigate and be performant on these endeavors. Geography also means that it has, because it's a long country, it has in the north areas where you have some mountains and a lot of rainfall from the Atlantic, therefore a lot of forests, and in the south perhaps more like Algarve, a much more dry and Mediterranean climate. So a country that is, has this diversity that enables great agriculture, great food production that is both local, very traditional, very, let's say, organic, biological, I mean, traditional, that's what it means. So geography is very good, there's a lot of water, there's a lot of good food production ability in Portugal. Second asset, I think, of Portugal is the people. Portuguese people have, as I said, throughout the centuries been innovative, exploring, they are extremely hardworking people, and in today's world this remains the same. They have been able to develop a strong economy in the 80s and 90s and 2000s here, but also they have been able to travel across the world, and I made good friends with Portuguese people in Mozambique, in Zimbabwe, in Angola, of course in the United States, and of course all over Europe. Switzerland is a big Portuguese, there's a lot of Portuguese people who moved to Switzerland, where I live, where I am from, in the last 20 years, 30 years. And they've been contributing very, very strongly to the growth of all these places they've been going to. So it is strong, hardworking, innovative people that have these qualities that are assets in difficult economic times. Another interesting fact about Portuguese people is that they have suffered throughout difficult times. They've had far-right dictatorships, left dictatorships. They have suffered through economic crisis in the 60s, in the 70s, and of course lately in the late 2000s, since 2008, a very strong economic downturn, which is still nothing towards what's coming, but it is an asset for them to have discovered and have experienced these difficult economic times. They've also had their shares of wars, which I guess toughened them. Portugal has fought wars of colonization, of course, but of course also recently decolonization. They fought long and, I'd say, silly wars, but difficult wars throughout Africa, in Angola, in Mozambique. And a little known fact about Portugal is that they fought in World War I on the side of the Entente, mostly in Africa. And this led to a culture of people who are not feminized, who are still fighting and strong, and at the same time they're very open and friendly, and this is an interesting mix of cultures for difficult times. One last thing one has to consider when analyzing countries, of course, the current state of the economy and the economical asset that the country has. So geography is an important one, people is a very important one, and of course, the economy of Portugal has been the weakest link throughout its, let's say, the last 2 centuries of its history. It lacked strong manufacturing. It was very late in the Industrial Revolution. It lacked heavy industries, and even only recently developed the services, which, as we know, is not the strongest type of economy you wish for. Now, on the good side, it kept a very strong agricultural base. This agricultural base is the one that could probably keep feeding the country in the coming decades of economic downturn. And what's interesting is that throughout the 90s and especially early 2000, when Portugal economy was booming, of course creating a lot of debt, but it was still booming. It attracted a lot of people from Africa, from mostly former colonies like Angola or Mozambique, but also Brazil. And now a lot of these people have left because the downturn made them find better opportunities. In fact, Brazil economy and especially Angola have been doing much better, and therefore a lot of people left. So I think there's about 1 million people who left Portugal in the last 5-6 years, and so that has created some less employment, therefore less costs, and enables today Portuguese, while still in a very deep economic crisis, to at least have limitation of that crisis, if you wish. Now, in the future, as things will get worse and worse, Portugal will suffer from the lack of trade, from the lack of possibility of importing and exporting. It will suffer from the big debt. A lot of banks in Portugal have failed and have been bankrupt in the last few years, and it will continue. So a lot of the people will be left to their own mean, but that's where their asset in terms of, let's say, social psychology as a country is good for them, because they know how to go back to the countryside, grow food. They know how to build a sustainable autonomous base, as I explain in my books. And a lot of people maybe from who are today in other countries and who are Portuguese may want to come back here to take care of the land of their forefathers, of the land of their parents or grandparents, and grow the food, grow the the livestock, the animals, and the fisheries that can enable them to have a strong life to sustain themselves. And of course, being a homogeneous society, they will not have problems like other countries, and therefore it will be a country that goes very well. So, with that, I believe that Portugal is a good country to survive in the economic collapse that is coming. And for all of you who are interested to live in Portugal or who are living in Portugal, I encourage you to read, if you read English, my book Survive the Economic Collapse, or in French or in other languages. And if you know an editor who's willing to get my book published in Portuguese for Brazil and Portugal, I'm all open, I own the rights, so I'll be happy to discuss. With that, I leave you, and from beautiful, beautiful Lisbon, Piero and Giorgio, and take care and prepare yourselves.